On those days when I don't want to get out of bed, on those days when I'm sad about something, on those days when I feel like being a lump in the corner, it's what gets me up in the morning, knowing that someone out there needs the thing that I was going to create today. And if I don't get up and do it, I'm letting someone else down. Even if it's having a conversation with someone on the corner, whatever it is, someone needs that. Hello, I'm Anjali Bhimani. You may know me as Symmetra from Overwatch, Rampart from Apex Legends, Auntie Ruby from Ms. Marvel, or from a host of things like Critical Role, Dimension 20, a bunch of stuff online, and you are listening to Behind the Mic.
Anjali, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you have played a considerable number of roles across theater, acting, and also voice acting as well. Now, people usually get introduced to actors or voice actors from different projects in their career. For you, that could be Symmetra, Rampart, Auntie Ruby, amongst many others. Does it ever surprise you which characters people latch onto the most?
Oh no. It does surprise me when people come up to me and mention something that is not one of the most common ones, and it's always a delightful surprise when that happens, because the fact is, yes, as actors, we have the role that we may be most known for, but it may or may not be the one that was closest to our heart, or that we put as much effort into, or that we, put as much love into. We try to put as much love as we can into all of them, but sometimes you spend, years playing a role, like in theater, and then people don't know about it. So it's always lovely when people come up to me and talk about something that doesn't get talked about as often. But it makes perfect sense to me that people would latch on to the most prevalent roles that they know me from, because, that's how they know me. And they may not have had a chance to dive down the rabbit hole and learn all of the other things. And they may not have been in New York in the early 2000s to see me on Broadway, so how would they know? There's no way to see that unless you go to the Lincoln Center Library and watch it there. There's no way to experience that again. So yeah, it never surprises me that the ones that people know me from the most, but it's always a delightful surprise when someone comes up and talks about maybe a little known thing that I did, or something that only lasted for a couple of weeks or something like that, because then it feels like, the little jewels that you have left around in your life are still being noticed and made a difference in someone's life and made an impression. And, as a performer, one of the questions we are often left with is my work having an effect? Is it connecting with people? Is it something that makes the world better, or makes a person's life better, or makes a person happy? You want to know that you've done something, that you put something out in the world that's made a difference. So when people come back to you and say, hey, I saw this thing that you did in 1997. Yes, I'm that old. When people come and say that, it feels very heartwarming to know that little thing made a difference.
Is there a particular role that really catches you off guard more than others when people say, oh, I recognize you from this or that?
No, because I feel like it happens more often than I would expect, and it does delight me when people say they do know me from my first Broadway show, which was called Metamorphoses. And the reason it delights me is because that show in particular made a big difference on my life as well, but the timing of it was exceptional, and the experience of it was exceptional also because we came to New York right before 9/11, and we opened off Broadway like 2 weeks after 9/11. And so many shows unfortunately closed during that time for obvious reasons. The theater was struggling. But but because of the subject matter, which was love and redemption and change and grief, changing through emotion and through experiences. And because of the beauty of that show, Mary Zimmerman's vision for that show was so extraordinary. It really resonated with people. And we had a very long, successful Broadway run because it resonated with people and was almost a balm for them. And as a result, people still to this day will say, hey, I saw you in Metamorphoses and it made this big difference on my life. Or even better, even more heartwarming to me is when people say, I saw this and this is why I became an actor. And that, it doesn't take me off guard because now it's happened enough, but it always really warms my heart when it happens, because that's a really special show for me and a really special experience for me too.
Yeah, because that was after you had graduated Northwestern. That was your first role that you had played.
It was the first Broadway show I did, but I started working. I was very lucky. I started working right away after college. My first show was in 1997 with the same director of Metamorphoses. It was a show at the Goodman Theater in Chicago, and then I worked pretty steadily until that show, Metamorphoses, opened in Chicago, and then we moved to New York. So that was definitely the first well-known, first nationally known project that I did. I think some of the others were nationally known, but this one really resonated with people. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, that must have been your first thing because that's the one people know. But it's the 10-year overnight success syndrome, where people have been working steadily for a long time and everyone's like, where did that person come from? And you're like, I've been here all along, my loves. This is the first chance we're getting to meet. So yeah, it was though my first Broadway show. That is correct. And it was my first big show in New York.
Because it was adapted as well, what actually changed from when it was adapted production-wise that you had to personally prepare for with that shift of going from the adaptation to Broadway?
Well, the adaptation happened, the adaptation was for theater already. So when we moved to Broadway, it wasn't like it was a brand new adaptation from the show we had done in Chicago and Seattle and all of the other cities, Los Angeles, Berkeley. The only real big change was that was the first time, the off-Broadway production was the first time we did it in a proscenium house, as opposed to a thrust theater. And then the Broadway production was the first time that we did it in what was essentially almost theater in the round. It was a very long, 3/4 thrust, almost like if you, how do you say this? Upstage was the short side of the rectangle, as opposed to the other way around, which is how most thrust theaters are, or a diamond, diagonal configuration. So really the biggest adaptations were just for the spaces. It wasn't necessarily adapting the script at all. But that's part of the job, and that's what you do during tech. And Mary is she's so good at what she does. It really is, your job is to just listen and offer up suggestions and stuff, which she will take when they're great. But I trust her implicitly to make her actors look good and to make the show look good. So you don't have to worry too much about what do I need to do to change this, or what do I need to come up with to adapt this. She has a very strong vision for her shows. Yeah.
And with obviously acting in stage performances as well as live acting as well, and then going to voice acting, is there any transferable skills that you take from live acting into a vocal booth, and which ones would you say are most prevalent?
Acting. Because it's all acting. You can't be a voice actor without being a good actor. And even the term voice actor is not really accurate to what a lot of us do, because now a lot of time people who are quote unquote voice actors are doing performance capture. And so, the actors from Baldur's Gate spent more time doing the physical action of that game than they did doing the voice recordings. So thinking of it that way, thinking of it more as, game performers or just performers is a little more accurate in that instance. But yeah, it's all acting across the board. You have to be a good actor. It's not just about having a good voice or a voice that resonates with people or anything like that. Although that is a great thing to have. You gotta be a good actor.
Yeah. Also, there's the element of physicality with Symmetra and Rampart. Obviously, you are acting as well as utilizing your voice in ways that you need to be able to voice actions as well and movements.
Yeah,
and
I don't want to sound glib about, what I just said. It's obviously, as if we are recording Symmetra or Rampart and we're not doing any performance capture where there's a camera on us, obviously we are funneling the whole performance through our voice, and that's all the audience is getting. So there is a particular set of technical skills that you want to have to be able to do that. but it is still acting. It's just you're more stationary because you have to be in a limited space, in a limited amount of movement because of the mic. But I'm also still very, like, I'm as active as I can be without moving away from the mic, much to my engineers' chagrin. Many of them are like, we really liked that, but we heard the movement, so you got to do that again. So I didn't mean to be glib about that. It's so important, I think, for people who are going into this field and who are excited about, oh, I want to be a voice actor, to understand that you need to be an actor first. You're not just a voice. Because a lot of people will come to this being like, oh, people always tell me I should do voiceover because of how my voice sounds, which is awesome. That is a great place to start. It's just that you also need to be an actor. So add that to the mix. Take the acting classes. Learn how to tell a story.
Exactly. Because obviously you've shown before that you are very comfortable when it comes to being in a vocal booth. There was a TikTok that you had posted saying how you would like...
me running around like a crazy person?
Yep.
Yeah, that was, and it's funny because I posted that and people were like, there's no way you do that in the booth. They can't record it like that. And I'm like, no, I said this is what I wish I could do. And unfortunately, I take all that energy and have to compress it into my little body and have it come out my voice without doing that. But yeah, if I had my druthers, I'd be running all around the room. Because it's just, I enjoy coming to characters through physicality. I enjoy... I sometimes I will feel most in my character, or I'll start a rehearsal process wearing the shoes I think that character will wear, and wearing the shoes I think I'm going to wear in the show, because it makes you walk different, and then there's a physicality that's different, and then there's a way of speaking that's different, So in my dreams, I could run around the room.
Yep. And would you say that was probably when you started voice acting? Would you say that kind of restriction in physicality is a big difference to how you started with acting as well?
Difference, yes, but it's not as, at least for me, it was not as challenging as you might think. I'm very lucky because, going back to those transferable skills that you asked about, as a theater performer, part of what you spend a lot of time on if you study is your voice, is the modulation of your voice, is the health of your voice, and the endurance of your voice. So doing 8 shows a week kind of prepped me, and without losing my voice, kind of prepped me for a 4-hour session where we're screaming all the time. And you're like, how do you maintain that? How do you conserve? How do you protect yourself by saying, hey, I'm only going to do 2 takes of this, so let's because I know I shouldn't be screaming this much, or whatever that is. So that's a transferable skill that definitely came from voice. But yeah, so in terms of the challenge of it, it was a little bit less challenging to me because I understood the assignment, so to speak, which is we need to know who this character is just using this instrument. So do it. Do it as if you are on stage, but there's a blackout. Go. Exactly.
Yeah. And you also have people who are there with you to maybe guide you on, like, obviously how you sound as well.
Oh, yes. And that's, I should very much point that out. When we are doing, particularly when we're playing recording games, and we're doing either battle chatter, or we're just doing individual lines that might be played during gameplay, as opposed to what we call cut scenes, which are entire scenes between characters. We are so dependent on the voice director and the writers who are in the quote unquote room. It might be a Zoom, but they're essentially there in the session with you, because they know where this is going. They know the tone of the game. They know things that you don't know about this moment that we are recording. So we are very dependent on them to make the right decisions of which take is going to work. It's similar to doing television or film, where you're really dependent on the editor and the cinematographer, because I don't see what they see, and I don't know what that final edit is going to be like. So I just have to trust, did they get the shot? Did they get the take? Are they going to edit it right so that people see the right part? You just have to trust the people that you're working with, that final product is going to be the one that is the best.
And with your 2 most prevalent video game performances, Symmetra and Rampart, they're 2 characters from 2 very respected games. You're essentially performing for someone who will spend hundreds of hours with that voice, with your voice. Yeah. How did that long-term like intimacy change how you approach a vocal performance for a video game as opposed to an acting role?
What a great question. It didn't change it. Because again, acting is about the truth, right? And making sure you're truthful in the moment. And when it resonates with people, it's because it is honest and truthful, and you're not trying to force people to feel anything. So it doesn't matter whether you are speaking one single line that people are going to hear 400,000 times in their room, or if you are speaking one line that's in the theater that they will never hear again because it's improvised. It's the same level of truth that you are committing to. And it does need to be, in my opinion, the same level of commitment to it. So it doesn't change anything so much as it changes the experience of the people who are taking in the art of it. I think because of the way games work and because of the ability of the players to have agency and to be a part of the story, there is a kind of intimacy and a kind of ownership of that character that they feel that they don't necessarily, that you wouldn't necessarily feel if you saw a movie or saw a TV show or came to the theater. There's a sense that character is part of them, belongs to them, feels like them, or is their friend, or is you know what I mean? Like there's just a connection that is different than the one we would have when there's a fourth wall or when we're just separated by seats and stage or screens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because you've said before that essentially you feel more connected with both Rampart and Symmetra being someone you aspire to be, and Rampart being your more literal self. So like that is that kind of like one of the truths you're talking about as well, like being able to perform for those roles.
God, your questions are so good, Tanner. How do I say this? I think with every character I'll speak, obviously, I should just speak for myself. I shouldn't say for everybody. With every character that I play, I will pull from as much of my own experience as I feel is appropriate. And then I will just play make-believe, because there are some things that we've never experienced in our life. If I have to play a mass murderer, I'm not going to go to my own experience for that, right? Because I have none. I promise, I have none. So in terms of how much of myself is in a character, it's all me. It's just some of it comes from my imagination and some of it comes from my experience. And some of it comes from what if I was here, or if I was this person, how might that feel? It's still imagination. It's still make-believe. But thanks to training and experience and years of doing this, being able to play what if more effectively, that becomes the thing that you do better and better and better as time goes on. Some people are just born with it. Some people are just brilliant at it from day one. Kids are great at it. When you're playing with a 3-year-old girl, she doesn't pretend she's a fairy princess. She is a fairy princess, right? So that sense of abandon and commitment to it is very, very important. But like Symmetra for me she is many parts of who I am that I want to cultivate more of. Whereas Rampart, it's me with an accent. It's and that's just pure fun. So that's the difference.
And since the release of both Apex Legends and Overwatch, how has your relationship with both the game but also the fans kind of evolved over the span of that time?
I mean, it was a very quick falling in love with the community that happened because I connected with them through Overwatch. And then that love affair has just continued and to continue to grow the whole time. I have been so blown away by the generosity of the gaming community and the generosity of their own spirits, of their artistry, of their kindness. I know we hear about toxicity in gaming all the time, and I know that it exists, and I have seen it myself. I don't think it's a make-believe thing, but I do believe for every toxic person or every toxic moment there is out there, there are 10 beautiful moments that are just not as loud. And when I first started connecting with the gaming community at the beginning of Overwatch, it was that level of engagement that they provided to us that really inspired me to do a lot more things and be more of service in my career. You know, it inspired me to do I Am Fun Size, which was my web series, to kind of help people in challenging times and write that book. It inspired me to do the Puppy Roll, which is my charity event. It inspired me to use gaming to do that. It inspired me to work with Games for Change, which is an organization that goes around the world helping developers create games and supporting companies when they're doing games that might make a difference in the world or that help with education, or, you know, there's so many things that this community has inspired me to do. And on a very basic human level, on those days when I don't want to get out of bed, on those days when I'm sad about something, on those days when I feel like being a lump in the corner, it's what gets me up in the morning, is knowing that someone out there needs the thing that I was going to create today. And if I don't get up and do it, I'm letting someone else down. Even if it's having a conversation with someone on the corner, you know, whatever it is, someone needs that. And that is a level of empowerment and responsibility that came from that community.
Yeah. And because you talk about being of service and talking about your experiences and making sure that you are there for other people as well, because your I Am Fun Size book, which really delves into basically lifting people up, because you said it started off as a web series and like videos on YouTube asking people to send you stories and like talk about their own experiences. But like, when did that start with Overwatch, or did that start with like way early on in your career when you started thinking about these experiences and how to share them?
That specific thing happened precisely on the first day that I recorded an I Am Fun Size video. The desire to be more than just an actress or more than just about myself, I think, has always been inside me, and it's why I've been unsatisfied with just doing a show and coming off stage. You know what I mean? Like, it's great and it's amazing, and I do not, like, if anyone wants to live that life, I am here for it. That is awesome. But for me, if I'm just doing it for me, it's not as satisfying. You know, and if I'm just doing it for applause, or if I'm just doing it to appease the person on the other side of the table in an audition, that only goes so far in terms of inspiration for me. And this is not an easy career, so you need more to inspire you than just, you know, your own self-serving interests. At least I do. I should stop speaking again. I shouldn't speak for anyone else. I need more to keep me going on a daily basis. So I think that desire has probably been in me for decades, but it absolutely, like, the moment that I realized, oh, my career, I mean, in a good way, my career and my passion and my purpose are now finally starting to align. And that happened on February 2nd, 2017. I had asked people to, you know, like on Twitter, I was like, hey, let's do a fan art Friday. And I think I actually did it on a Thursday, which was weird. It was Thursday night and like preparing people for tomorrow. I don't know. I didn't know how it worked. And I thought, 10 people max are going to send me something. And all of a sudden there was this bam, 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 this barrage of people throwing up their art online and sharing other people's art with their permission. And it was extraordinary. And that was the moment I was like, these people have leapt to the call because you put it out there. Who the hell are you to not take care? Who the hell are you to not do something for this community? You get off your ass and do something for them. And the only thing that I could think of at the time that I had to offer that no one else could offer was sharing my experiences with people with the intention of helping them through their own. I have no business giving people advice. I am not a doctor. I just play them on TV. I can barely live my own life. And I make bad decisions all the time, but I can tell people a story that may or may not help them through a tough time. I can share an experience that may be similar to theirs that helps them kind of twist the kaleidoscope that they're looking through, so they see their experience through a different lens and then can move forward with it. And so that's how that happened. And from then on, that's where it really started to take off. I also think, now that I'm thinking of it, I think it was back in 2014. that I wrote a little thing in my blog at the time called The Starving Artist versus the Hungry Artist. Because I was having a moment of like, why the hell do we give over to this model of the starving artist? And why are we told that that's a romantic, wonderful idea? But we do have to stay hungry to be able to keep that fire lit. And writing that, for me, was probably the first purposeful act of service as an actor, because I started to understand, oh, my job is to be the surrogate for people to experience this thing on stage. My job is to say, I got you. You sit in that seat. We're going to go for a ride. I'm going to do all the heavy lifting, but you are comfortable and safe in your seat. You will experience things through me. And when you leave, you will have this experience inside you in some way, but you get to go home and your life is intact and nothing has changed, except you have maybe hopefully been expanded just a little bit more on the inside.
Yeah, because you actually, I remember you had said something about Overwatch being the first time your passion and your purpose were aligned together. So you basically were that conduit to bring a very positive experience with the cutscenes, with the in-game dialogue and everything to those fans, as well as people who have watched you perform and listen to your voice as well.
Yeah, I mean, and also, part of the reason I say my passion and my purpose came together is because of the reach and the voice that I was given because of Overwatch. It's not just what I can do in the game. It's definitely because I was blessed, and so were we as a cast, with the opportunity to reach more people. You know, for whatever reason, people suddenly started listening and paying attention to us as actors. And I know the reason, you know, I understand the reasons, but my point being, before that, no matter how intense a performance or how personal or how, you know, whatever, life-changing for me or for the people in the theater, it was limited to a smaller group of people. Now, all of a sudden, because of Symmetra and because of the chance to say these lines and create this character and be this character, people are now seeing and hearing the parts of me that I'm hoping will be of service in the world. So now it's my responsibility to do it. And that's what I mean by my passion and purpose coming together. Because my biggest goal, I think, in life is to let people know they're not alone. And despite the fact that there are a gazillion people in the world, despite the fact that we can talk to people all day online, despite the fact that you may not physically be alone, it is very easy to feel alone in today's world. And I think that is a sad and dangerous place to be. When you feel like no one understands you, or you feel like no one's going through what you've been through and all of those things, you are unique. We are all unique, but your path is, you know, and your path is yours, but there's always someone there to cheer you on, or to send you a meme, or to be a shoulder to cry on. There's always someone there. And you would be missed if you are gone. The chance to be able to share that sentiment and to be able to empower people or inspire people, that is the part that for me was like, this is, now I have the fuel for the rest of my career, because I know that I can do that in the world.
With the voice acting community, with being an actor, being a theater performer, you bring such a vibrance to every performance that you're in, because I've seen, like, when I first found out who you were, I was watching Modern Family, and I was thinking, she's actually pretty funny for Sanjay's mom, and I'm just like, why am I connecting with her so well? And then it was only until like a few years later to this day that I actually found out how much more you were in. And then going back and listening to your performances, I'm like, this is incredible. And especially with all your interviews and everything, you have such a vibrance to your personality and how much you care about not just your fans, but just people you haven't even met yet.
Oh, Tanner, you are so incredibly kind. That is one of the sweetest things that I have honestly ever heard. Because that is what I hope the effect can be that I have on the world. And, you know, look, I have bad days like everyone else. I have bad moments like everyone else. I joke when people are like, "Oh my God, your pictures are so great." I'm like, I don't put the shitty ones online. Like it's that, all of us have bad days. But I do aspire to be the best version of me that I can, especially when it is in a public situation where it may have an effect on someone, because someone's going to see that. Someone's going to see that somewhere, and it has the potential to make their day or not, to make their day or make it worse, And so I don't want to be the person who makes someone's day worse. I'd much rather be the person who makes someone's day better and then find out, and then like, look what they go do, That's fun. That's exciting. So yeah, I do my best to bring that energy to everything I do. And it's very kind of you to say it the way you did.
And speaking of like bringing joy, one of the most fascinating things I found out when I was learning more about you was how much you are into D&D.
Well, D&D brings me good joy, so that's thank you.
So you were exposed to Dungeons and Dragons when you were a child, and you got like a starter set when you were 8, and so. Would you say, this is more of a two-parter, so would you say that is one of the experiences that helped set your life on a creative track? And the second part would be, when you think back to that moment, what was it about D&D that hooked you first? Was it the performance element? Was it the world building, the freedom? Or was it something else?
So I think I was already a very like creative kid. I remember, like, this sounds ridiculous, but like I wrote a little play in first grade on the playground, and then we performed it in class, and like, so that was always like a little thing that and thank God that I had great teachers who were supportive of that. So that was always kind of a part of who I was, even as a kid. My parents read to us constantly and shared stories with us constantly. And so storytelling was very, very important to me. And so when I was 8 and I got this starter set from my brother, who was so awesome, that element, I think, is what I connected with the most. Is like, cool, this is a really cool way for me to be a part of a story, and not just one that I completely make up in my head, because the dice are helping me tell the story. They're helping me have ideas. But also, I loved falling into other worlds. I loved fantasy. I loved sci-fi. I loved all of that. I loved mythology. Mythology, when I was younger, was probably my version of sci-fi and fantasy. And so I loved that so much, and D&D really had those elements in it, right? So I think that's probably what I connected with the most. Plus, there was like that solo adventure in the basic set and the starter set. So it was something I could do by myself, and I could explore it at least by myself before I learned to play with other people. And I think that was a really enticing thing for me.
Yeah, and you've gone on to actually create several stories. The Malady of Manar, Daisy Quest, which got 150K on Kickstarter, which is no big joke. It's a huge deal for things like that to actually come out. And so when you were making these tabletop role-playing games, did you think creatively about how complex some of these elements would be, especially being an actor and now also a writer as well at that point?
Well, first of all, I have to give credit where it's due, and much as I appreciate you suggesting that Daisy Quest is one of these things that I came up with, that world is entirely the creation of Jasmine Pollard. She is the one who orchestrated that world. I came in as a player. I came in as someone who got to play in that world. So yes, I created my character, but the larger story, the larger world building, all of that was Jasmine. But with the Malady of Manar, yeah, I mean, it's all the same thing to me. It's all make believe. It's just a different structure and a different technique, or a different technical requirements. So The Malady of Minar also came out of just the year before I had started DMing for the very first time. And the good folks at Wizards of the Coast, for whatever reason, had enough faith in me to let me do it for the first time in front of a gazillion people. So, and when I did that for the Lego one shot, it really helped me. It helped me put away my fears of DMing and realize, oh, you get to be the purveyor of fun. You're the host of the party. You get to make sure everyone at your table is having a great time. You get to take them on a journey. Yes, it's a responsibility, but it's not as much responsibility as you thought it was. Like, no one's going to yell at you for getting it wrong. It's fine. We're all going to have a fun time together. And, some people on the internet may yell at me for getting it wrong, but I don't have to hear them all. So with that, then the Malady of Minar, what was so cool is that, again, the folks at WotC hit me up and said, you want to do a third-party publishing situation after that DMing experience? And it took me back to childhood. Like, now I get to create the story and put it on the page and share it with the world that way and hand it over to people and say, now make it yours. That's really my favorite part about that process is, yeah, I created this scaffold for you. Mess it up. Do what you want. I want to hear what you did to change it that's way better than what I did. I want to know how people made it their own. And it's very specifically engineered to either drop into your existing campaign or play it as a standalone. People can drop it into existing worlds. Like, they can drop it into Exandria. They can drop it into Greyhawk. They can drop it into wherever. So I guess it harkens back to my love of storytelling as a kid and my love of writing fiction as a kid, but with the added element of wanting to include other people in the fun.
Yeah. And with elements of D&D, basically, there's obviously great detail and storytelling that obviously you just mentioned people can obviously build on. Has there been like a recent experience where someone told you about their own personal D&D story or journey that you had influenced before?
Oh, wow. There are many. I do get approached a lot by people from the South Asian community who feel like they are excited to see someone of South Asian descent also in this space, because there aren't a lot of us. And that was something that we did very much want to do with Desi Quest. But also just me doing stuff in the world. Like when you see someone who you can identify with in the world doing something, then it's great to be like, oh, good, then I can do it too. So there's that for sure. There's the moment that I spoke of about Metamorphoses. In the TTRPG world, there are a few people who have come up and said, wow, when you DM'd for the first time and you didn't die, not they didn't say you didn't die, I said I didn't die, but when you DM'd for the first time, it made me realize, oh, I can too. And that is such a happy place for me. One of my favorite developments in my life in like the last 10 years is this weird thing of, actually it's been longer than 10 years, this weird thing of I end up doing something for the first time in front of an audience. So, whether it's the first time I do an opera, okay, well, here you go. You're gonna put yourself out there doing that. Or it's the first time I'm DMing, or it's the first time I'm experiencing this or that. And what's cool about that is knowing full well that literally all I have to do is not die, and people will be able to see an example of themselves or see an example of someone trying it for the first time and know that it's possible, That's a really exciting thing for me. I love opening the door for people to explore things by saying, it's safe. Come on in, it's safe. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that's happened for me in the TTRPG space has been like that.
Yeah, because you're still, to this day, you're still blending performance with D&D. So you're appearing on 20-Sided Tavern tonight on December 17th, which, again, I was very surprised to hear about that. And then, because I've seen 20-Sided Tavern only briefly in passing, but I thought that was such a very interactive way for someone to basically perform D&D for others, because there's obviously been like movies, and then you were also in The Legend of Vox Machina as well. You had a role in that show as well. Now, with all of these creative paths in mind, theater, D&D, voice acting, live acting, writing. Do you ever think that at this point in your career, you have established a way to maybe say no to a project, or if you've established whether a project is worthy of saying yes?
Oh, wow. I mean, to an extent, my picker has gotten better, but there's always an element of the unknown when you're working on something creative. The creative process is always a little bit scary. If it's not, you're doing something wrong. The creative process always has an element of, you don't know if it's going to work. Live performance, you don't know what's going to happen that night. Even if you have the same lines, you've rehearsed a million times, it's live. You don't know what's going to happen. Same thing with a new show, or same thing with 20-Sided Tavern. It was a brand new format that no one had ever seen before. I came in after it had already been produced and put on stage, and so I was the benefit of their experience. So that was easy for me to be like, awesome, I want to do this. I've watched it, I've seen it with other people, I know it's amazing, please put me in, I love it. But anytime you are creating something from scratch, your best, weirdly, it's like dating, in the sense that this person may seem freaking amazing, but you don't know. You don't know until you dive in. You don't know until you meet the person. You don't know until you date them. You don't know until you've been with them for a long time. Then you might get married and not know. Like, there's always an element of the excitement of the unknown. To continue the analogy, I think the creative arts has to be a little bit of a love affair. Because if you don't have the love for it, if you don't have the passion for it, it's very hard to continue as an artist in today's society. So yeah, I mean, I have some criteria for me in terms of like, okay, for example, I used to have a rule that it had to be at least one of these three things. Then it became two of these three things. It either had to be something that was creatively inspiring, or with people that I wanted to get to know or that I really wanted to work with, or frankly, financially rewarding, because everybody got to pay their bills. And sometimes in the past, yeah, I would just take the job for the money. Now I am thankfully in a position where I don't have to do that. I still do sometimes. I'm not going to lie about that. But I don't have to now. So I'm not necessarily, now I have the benefit of being like, okay, it's financially rewarding, yes, but I also get to do this with friends. Cool. I don't know if it's going to be creatively rewarding, but we're going to find out. Or vice versa. I don't know any of these people. This is a very small project, but it seems like it's going to be creatively rewarding, so let's jump in and see what happens. So those are some of the criteria I work with. But ultimately, who knows? There are incredible casts with incredible directors who have done movies that have completely flopped. And vice versa, there have been things that everybody said that were going to flop that have been huge successes. You really don't know. You can only make your best guess.
Now, with that in mind, because I'm aware that sometimes people can't always talk about projects they're working on, but do you have any projects coming up that you can talk about?
Well, there's one that's existing right now, and in fact, the final episode is going to be this Friday, this week. So that's December 19th, which is Tales from Wood Creek, which is another example of me combining or of getting to be a part of combining two of my favorite things, or two of my favorite mediums. And Deborah Ann Wall and Ed Gass Donnelly, he's the producer and she's the DM, they came up with this together, which is essentially D&D meets an escape room. And so we shot this show with the Dungeon Dudes, and then the three of us were the main cast. Deborah Ann was our DM, and then each couple of episodes we had a new guest star on, most of whom had never played D&D before. And it has been such a joy to shoot it. The experience of shooting it was so incredible. And then to get to watch it after it has been edited like a television show is just, it's so much fun. It's such a fun show to watch. So I'm really thrilled about that. I hope people get a chance to check it out. You can check it out on the Dungeon Dudes channel. There's probably an episode of a show called Go Fact Yourself on NPR that I got to do with Paul Feig. which is just a delightful episode because he is an unmitigated delight. The man is so sweet and so talented. So there's that fun thing. What else? New Call of Duty character that I'm thrilled about that people can check out. A new playable character, a new operator in Call of Duty named Priya. She came out in November. Obviously, the book is still out there. The web series is still out there. All the stuff that I've done in the past is still out there. We had 8 games come out this year, and I'm pretty thrilled with all.
Yeah, so basically, quick fire round. I'm just going to ask 5 questions. You say the first thing that comes to mind, and that's how we're going to do it.
All right. We'll see how fast my brain is.
All right.
Without caffeine. I need more caffeine right now for that. Okay.
Oh, man. All right. First, what is a line that you have recorded that is still in your head?
If you don't like what you see, put a bag over your head. One of my favorite Rampart lines.
I've heard that one, and so many people love that.
I love that one so much.
Yep. All right. Then set number 2. Can you sum up your voice acting career in one word?
Love.
Perfect. Then 3. What is the weirdest thing you've done physically to get a voice right?
Oh. There are a lot of times that I'll hold my breath for a little bit before I do something, just to help me get a little bit anxious. I mean, ultimately I have to hold it for a really long time to get that, but to get myself a little bit anxious and get a little bit of anxiety in my voice and a little bit of extra breath. So there's that. I don't know that I consciously have done something physically to make my voice different. I will often, and this is not weird, but I'll often, like if we're doing fight scenes or something, I'll do as much of the action as I can without messing with the mic. So there's that. Everything else just feels like, manipulation of the instrument itself. So
I guess whatever this is, I don't know what I'm doing physically to make this happen, but it's that right there, whatever I'm doing right now.
like that's the kind of stuff right there.
Oh, amazing. All right, number 4. Is there a dream project or IP that you would be eager to work on?
I would love to be in the Star Trek universe so bad. I was raised on it. I want to be on any of the I love the Star Trek universe so much. I love what it stands for. I love everything about it. So that's one IP I'd love to be a part of.
Perfect. And then final question. What is your favorite vocal performance? It can either be from voiceover or it can be like any other medium.
Can't pick it. Can't do it. Can't do favorites. I suck at favorites. I can tell you my favorite human and my favorite dog. That's it. That's the only favorite I can pick. Everything else, it's too hard a question. Like, there's so many extraordinary things out there. There's so many extraordinary performances. I couldn't possibly pick one. Couldn't possibly.
Nope.
I pass.
That is totally fair. All right. Anjali, thank you so much for joining. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for such wonderful questions. These are such interesting and intriguing questions to be able to answer. I really appreciate you doing so much research and really putting so much love into this podcast. I feel very honored to be on it.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Behind the Mic. If you enjoyed the conversation and you want to hear more from the voices behind your favorite characters, then be sure to follow us on Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube. And don't forget to check out our other interviews as well as voiceover tips and industry news at Voquent.com or on our social media. See you next time.